Well, we're back again, but hold on a minute. I'm back with what looks like a new face. And most of you will probably not recognize that red-looking face with the green eye. That is Joe from Red Judaism, and you will see in the description box below his URL that you can go right to his YouTube channel. Joe is a friend, Jewish friend, who has been on board with us here at PfanderFilms before. I think the last time Joe came on was back in July of 2021, when he came and did a terrific unpacking of not only looking at the origins of Islam, but also looking at the Jewish influence in those origins. And he's come back to continue with that same type of theme, but more specifically, he's going to be looking at what became the Qur'an, not what is the Qur'an or what we see in our hands today. And we're going to be doing a series of episodes looking at the Umayyad books, or what you want to call them. I'll let Joe define them, and how the Abbasids took them and recreated them into what then became what we now know today as the Qur'an. Joe, are you there? I can see your face, but is your voice there?
Shalom, Jay. Yes, I'm here. Thank you for having me back again.
So he's right over here on my right. You can't see his
that
face.
means I have to. Yes. So I'm looking to the left.
There you go. You're waving at me right now. I assume this is the problem. You may ask, why does Joe not show his face? There's lots of people who are doing this kind of work who do not show their face just because of the repercussions that could happen, the security reasons. And so for that reason, he is, I'm not even going to tell you where he lives. I'm not permitted to do that. But what I can say is that Joe has been part of our Sin Sifter group from almost the very beginning. He has been away for a while. We're now bringing him back. We want to look at from a Jewish standpoint. Now, we have done many different standpoints up to this time. We've looked at the German school, the Inada school. Odon has been great, bringing on Galez, and also D from the French school. Now we want to come back and say we also need to look at how the Quran was, the Quran that we have today, where were its antecedents, where did it come from? And to do that, I've asked Joe to particularly unpack this side of it from him, because he has a whole different background, a Jewish background that we don't have. I don't have that background. Neither does Odon or Mel or Paul or Murad, and certainly not Thomas. So it's good to have you back, Joe. I want to give it right over to you. I know you have a PowerPoint that you're going to be introducing.
Well, thank you for the introduction there, Jay. Thank you. Well, let's start off with, first of all, I think the most important thing I want to make sure, I try very hard not to call this book the Quran. I try very hard not to call it the Quran. I would prefer to call it the Umayyad texts, because I want to hammer home that these texts originated in Umayyad times under Umayyad influence, and the Abbasid religion did not exist at the time that these texts came about. They were based on something, as we've seen, if you've been following Jay's channel and the work on this and on other channels for the past 2 years. These texts definitely had a Christian origin, but were redacted and changed, chopped about, edited, censored, rewritten in different dialects, and so many different versions of it came about. I think ultimately, according to the standard Islamic narrative itself, confesses that I think about 700 of these texts came about in the end, and were finally whittled down until in 1924 they chose the Cairo 1924 Hafs version, which became the most popular version of the Islamic Quran around in the world today. But that history really kind of, that history of what this book has gone through really sort of makes us wonder what did it originally look like before the Abbasids got their hands on it. And that's why I want to refer to it as the Umayyad texts before it became the Islamic Quran. Although I probably will slip my tongue every now and then and refer to it as Islamic Quran, because it's extremely difficult to keep that in mind. But I will try to refer to it as Umayyad texts. So when you hear me saying Umayyad texts, I'm talking about the Islamic Quran as you know it, but I'm trying to get the picture that it's something earlier, something more sort of unadulterated, to get it back to its sort of origin in a certain sense. And we know that it was quite different. You know, we've got those Sana manuscripts, we've got the Birmingham manuscript, and the most important source probably for this is actually the Dome of the Rock itself, where it has a few surahs, passages or ayats there, which might have been the original form of one of the surahs, which is no longer in existence in the Islamic Quran. That might have been the original surah, for example. Maybe it might have been Surah Isa ibn Maryam or something, which is a lost surah. But the Abbasids say that what remains, according to the standard Abbasid narrative, they say what remains is only 1/3 of the original Quran. So, you know, what is it? So
just on this point, Joe, just on this point, you did mention the Birmingham folios. Those are the two folios that became publicly given out to the public in 2015 from Birmingham, the Birmingham University, that really are only 2 pages front and back of Surah 18. What now today is 33 verses out of 300 verses from Surah 18, 19, and 20. So even that is pulling out parts of, and all of them are antecedent to Islam. So these would be borrowing. So you're saying that you wouldn't be surprised if we do find a lot of these texts, even if we came across manuscripts like the Birmingham folios, which I'm more than willing to say, if the carbon dating is from 568 to 645, 568 to 645, we're talking about mid-6th century up until the mid-7th century. If that is correct, then these would be part of that material, corpus of material that existed in the 7th century. Interestingly, all of those 3 stories, the 7 sleepers of Ephesus, the story of James the Lesser, and of Moses, those are all antecedent to the Quran anyways. So we would not be surprised, is what you're saying, if these stories, or even what Abdul Malik put on the Dome of the Rock, those references to Surah 112, chapter 4, verse 171, chapter 17, these were introduced into the Quran by the Abbasids later on, but it's not a surprise that they would be on the Dome of the Rock, is what you're saying, because this is part of the corpus of material that existed. You don't want to call it the Quran, but it eventually became the Quran.
Yes, it's a corpus of material. It's the Umayyad writings or the texts. And wait, you know,
hold on, but the Birmingham folios would predate the Umayyads if the last date is 645.
Well, you know, they say that Uthman is essentially a part of the Umayyad sort of family, so I'm including that sort of idea in there. But or whoever was alive at that time, I mean, we don't know. We know that there was a king of Tajikistan at that time. It might have been the one they refer to as Abu Turab. We don't know. But there was some king.
Nonetheless, the text would have existed quite proliferated in Arabic at that early period. That would not be surprising.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. And the language, when we say in Arabic, I was like, whoa, not, let's not call it Arabic yet. I'd say it was a Judo-Arabic dialect. And if anybody's interested, you can Google Judo-Arabic and you can find articles on it. And you'll see there are plenty of Judo-Arabic dialects out there. It's basically what we would say from a Judaic point of view, intelligible Arabic, not just standard Arabic, classical Arabic, common Arabic. It's an Arabic which is Judaized. It's an intelligible Arabic. If you imagine, like, Yiddish is like a German which is intelligible for Jewish people. It's got a lot of Hebrew words. It's got a lot of Aramaic words. It's got a lot of figures of speech and colloquialisms which are specific for the Jewish people. The same, they have a language called Ladino, which is the Sephardic language of Spanish-speaking Jews or Mediterranean Jews. It's basically based on Latin. And again, it's got a lot of Judaisms. It's got a lot of Aramaic, Hebrew, and other sort of terms in there. Even Koine Greek, which the New Testament is written in, the New Testament writings, this language is actually the Romaniot language. We call it Yavanit. It's actually a Judo-Greek. It's not classical Greek. And it's still the language of the Romaniot Jews until today. And it's the language which, for my own minhag, is actually a branch of the Romaniot minhag. So it's a Judo-Greek, and it's something which is very close to my heart. I get very upset when people talk about Romaniot Jews as being Hellenized Jews or Hellenists, because actually, you know, the Romaniots are the continuation of the Maccabees, and were specifically fighting against the Hellenized Jews who are more secular. But anyway, the point is there were these Judaized languages, and the Arabic of the Quran is not classical Arabic. It's not an Arabic dialect, as we know. It should be understood as Judo-Arabic. Even if it looks like Arabic, it should still be understood as Judo-Arabic. A lot of those words are Aramaic. A lot of them are Hebrew, actually, written in Arabic letters, but it's actually Hebrew. A lot of those phrases can only be understood from the point of view of Judaism. This is my point of view. This is my presentation to you.
Joe, excuse me. Joe,
yeah.
Obviously people are familiar with what Thomas has been bringing up with Christoph Luxemburg's and Gunther Lulling's material, that much of the Quran is Syro-Aramaic. And Syro-Aramaic in the Christian standpoint, that these are Christian texts. These are Christian lectionaries, hymns, homilies from 5th, 6th up until the 7th century. You're saying that this Judo-Arabic is similar to Syriac-Aramaic, Syro-Aramaic? Is it much on the same category?
I'm talking about what we end up with, say, looking at the Birmingham texts, the Birmingham manuscripts themselves.
Folios.
It looks, the folios, Birmingham folios. People look at that and they can read it and say, yeah, there you go, that's Quranic Arabic. There you go. They think it's the same. I'm saying that language, the language of the Birmingham folios, that is clearly, it's not Syro-Aramaic. It's actually an Arabic language, an Arabic dialect. I'm saying that it is Judo-Arabic, which has an awful lot of Syro-Aramaic terms in it. Palestinian Aramaic is called Syriac, and East Babylonian Aramaic is called Aramaic. We have two Talmuds. The Jerusalem Talmud is written in Palestinian Aramaic, that's Syriac, and we have the Babylonian Talmud, which was written in Aramaic, Eastern Aramaic. So we've got these. You shouldn't be surprised to see terms which are both from. If it's a Judo-Arabic dialect, you shouldn't be surprised to see terms from the Palestinian Talmud and from the Babylonian Talmud in there. There could be Syriac terms in there. There could be Aramaic terms in there, Syro-Aramaic terms, Hebrew terms, all of it written in Arabic script, but actually not really Arabic, but intelligible Arabic. And that's why the Quran has this phrase. I'm sorry, I called it the Quran. That's why these texts have this phrase, Lisan Arabi Mubin, which they say means pure Arabic language, but actually the word mubin, again, it's a Hebrew root, mevina, it means to understand, mevin, it means intelligible or understandable Arabic. So an understandable Arabic tongue, not pure Arabic, but intelligible Arabic. Intelligible for who? For a Judaized community, for a Judaic type community. So that's the first sort of thing there.
What you're saying is, what you're going to be doing now for the next episodes, you've now put down your introductory remarks, and that is when we look at what has become the Quran today, and you're actually going to be zeroing in on the Hafs Quran in much of what you're going to be doing in the subsequent. You're saying, where did this originate? Where did forget about all the other derivations, the other qira'ats. Let's just talk about the one that we have in our hand today. You want to go back and you want to see where this Abbasid, this is the Abbasid Quran. Let's call it for that for now. Where did the Abbasids get it from? What you're saying here, and this is new for me, you're saying that actually to understand that you need to go back to the Aramaic, or in this case, the Judo-Arabic dialect from which this then was lifted out and made into this book today. And this was probably created 8th, 9th, 10th century, much later.
Much later.
So you're saying there is a Judo-Arabic dialect that existed in the 7th century, which the Umayyads incorporated into their book. And you're going to explain what their book is in the next episode. We're going to go into that. And in the next episode, you're going to now say, what is that Umayyad text? And then later, you're going to say, well, what did the Abbasids do with that text? Exciting stuff, a lot of stuff to get into. And that's why, hold on, Joe's got an awful lot of material that he wants to unpack. Stay with us. You may not like what Joe is saying. You may not like the fact that he's brought in another category of Arabic, in this case, Judo-Arabic, a dialect that he's now going to give us well, we all need to know what's happening back there. And this is a window into that period. Listen, comment at the bottom, get back. Joe will be looking at the comments. He will certainly try to respond to them as best he can. It may be if we get some good feedback, some good pushback, that we'll need to come back and do some Q&As together. But that do interject and also discuss and debate. This is Jay and Joe, 4,000 miles apart, or maybe 3,000 miles apart. Over and out.